Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another Kingdom Hearts video. So Kingdom Hearts 3 had a ton of plot elements to add to the lore and a couple of really great reveals that are going to lead into the future of the series. We ended up seeing the foretellers who were thought to be lost in the Keyblade Wars show up in the epilogue of Kingdom Hearts 3. You had Luxord, the Master of Masters' essentially right-hand man, turn out to be Xigbar. And then you had Yozora, who's thought to be some sort of meta joke by the Square Enix team, actually become extremely relevant to the series when we end up fighting him in Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. However, one character that really surprised me that essentially came out of nowhere was actually Luxord, because we end up seeing him in the secret episode talking to Yozora, which in itself is really interesting. Because in Kingdom Hearts 3, with the cutscene of him, Marluxia, Larxene, and Demyx, we knew that he had some sort of ancient Keyblade legacy, and what that most likely means is he was there in the Age of Fairy Tales, even though we haven't seen him yet in the Union Cross story. But if he is, that raises a question. How did someone from the Age of Fairy Tales in the Kingdom Hearts universe end up in the universe of Unreality? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you want to see more Kingdom Hearts content, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. Also, if you know someone who would enjoy this or any of my other videos, go ahead and send it to them. And now, let's get into today's theory about the Gambler of Fate himself, Luxord. So first things first, we know that Luxord is from the Age of Fairy Tales, or at least has some ties to that same time period because of what Xemnas said in Kingdom Hearts 3 about Luxord, Marluxia, Larxene, and Demyx having some sort of ancient Keyblade legacy. And out of the four of them, we've only seen two of their Somebody forms show up in Union Cross, and that's of course Larxene's somebody Elrena and Marluxia's somebody being Lorium. So it's likely we'll see Demyx and Luxord's Somebody forms in later Union Cross updates. But for now, let's focus on Luxord for a bit because there's a lingering question that I think needs to be answered. If Luxord is supposed to be from the Age of Fairy Tales, how did he end up in the universe of Unreality? And when he got to Unreality, how did Luxord become acquainted with Yozora? Well, I personally think that Luxord could have been placed in the Ark and ended up in the universe of Unreality by accident. During the cutscene with Kairi in the Ark, we hear Terranort talk to Kairi about how she's about to be sent out from the world. He talks about how the world is about to be consumed by darkness and how she has the potential to lead him to the Keyblade wielder's world. But then he says something really interesting. He said, if you arrive in a place that's neither darkness nor light, but somewhere on the other side, you should abandon your search. So there are actually a couple of things to unpack here. First off, it means that the Ark actually has the ability not to just travel between worlds, but apparently between universes as well. And this actually has really interesting implications for the future of the series, because that provides an alternative route for other characters to end up in the universe of Unreality as well. And I'm thinking back to scenes like the end of Dream Drop Distance where Donald and Goofy pretty much show up out of nowhere, while Riku, Mickey, and Axel are tied up trying to save Sora. So if the Radiant Garden crew actually figures out how to get the Ark working for them, we could see a similar scene happen in future titles. And not just Donald and Goofy, but also for characters like Kairi. Should she need to get to the universe of Unreality to help Sora or Riku, there is a way for her to get there should she not be able to utilize the power of waking. And second, with Terranort saying if you end up on the other side, that shows that there's an element to the Ark that, at that point, he couldn't control. He specifically says should you end up somewhere on the other side, you should abandon your search. Now that to me indicates that there's some aspect of the Ark that's left to chance, something that for whatever reason is beyond his control. And third, we know from Union Cross updates that the rules of time travel still apply when you're using the Ark. So even if you were to travel to the future, you would still need to travel as just a heart to break through the barriers of time. Now, how does all of this tie into Luxord? I think there's a possibility that while trying to get to another world or even go into the future from the Age of Fairy Tales, Luxord somehow ended up in the universe of Unreality since we know the Ark has the power to transcend universes. That would explain how Xemnas was somehow able to say that Luxord has some sort of ancient Keyblade legacy, yet somehow still be in the universe of Unreality long enough to not only figure out how to go between the universes, but also meet and presumably earn enough of Yozora's trust to become his driver like we see in Remind. It's possible that Luxord somehow ended up in the Ark and upon ending up in a new universe, likely adjusted to his new environment while trying to find a way to return through the original Kingdom Hearts universe that we know. But then that raises the question of how did Luxord survive that long? The Age of Fairy Tales was hundreds of years before where we are now, and Luxord presumably doesn't have the ability to jump into different bodies like Luxu or Xehanort have demonstrated, so there's no reason Luxord should be able to live long enough to even reach the events of the main games. But there actually might be a way he could have, and it's actually a fairly simple explanation. We've seen that depending on the circumstance, time has the potential to flow differently in different realms, and this is something we've seen multiple times in the series. We've seen this before in places like the Realm of Darkness. Aqua ended up getting trapped in the Realm of Darkness at the end of Birth by Sleep, but then she went through the entirety of 0.2 and ended up at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1. Now, I'll admit, I'm not exactly the sharpest knife in the crayon box, but 0.2 didn't even feel like a 10-hour experience, let alone a 10-year experience. They even talked about this a little bit when they were talking about Sleeping Worlds in the first episode of Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. So depending on the location, time can flow differently. And just like time flows differently in the realm of darkness, it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility to think that time could flow differently in the universe of unreality. 1 hour in the Kingdom Hearts universe could be 1 minute in the universe of unreality, and going off of that, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say Luxord could have just lived his life there like Aqua did in the realm of darkness. And while this doesn't really affect the theory as a whole, I think that it's at least worth mentioning that while we do know that traveling the Ark is dangerous to someone's memory, like Kairi not knowing how she got to Destiny Islands, we do know that it is possible to recover those memories. And we know that because we see Kairi recover in Melody of Memory as she's going through her memories. The same could very easily be said of Luxord in the universe of unreality. After regaining his memories, possibly through the help of the technological advancement that universe seems to employ, he could have easily remembered that he's not where he's supposed to be and ultimately found a way to travel back and forth between the universes without the risks of using the Ark. Not to say that this is 100% true, no theory is, but I'd say with the information we have now that this is definitely a route I could see them going with the future when we learn more about who Luxord truly is. But enough about me, what do you guys think? How do you think Luxord ended up in the universe of unreality? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button so the algorithm doesn't exactly bury the video. And finally, if you want to join the Guardians of Twilight community, make sure you subscribe to the channel and join the official Guardians of Twilight Discord. But that's gonna be all from me today, so this is Moose Wayne, signing off.